Diplomatic spat between Brazil and Israel has continued for a third day, and Brazil's foreign minister is now accused of Israeli counterpart of lying. This comes after the Brazilian president Lula da Silva compared Israel's war on Gaza to Hitler's treatment of Jews. Israel, in response, said that Lula is not welcome in the country until he takes back the comment. Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu said he'd crossed a red line, and Foreign Minister Israel Katz called it a serious anti-Semitic attack. His Brazilian counterpart, Mauro Vieira, has now hit back, saying Tel Aviv's statements are unacceptable in their nature and lying in their content. Vieira also said that addressing a head of state from a friendly country in this way is unusual and revolting. Brazil has asserted it does not intend to retract the president's comments. Now, even as the row escalates, Rio de Janeiro is set to host a G20 foreign ministers meeting. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has arrived in Brasilia. He's expected to meet the Brazilian president before he heads to the G20 gathering. Even though the US has vetoed another UN resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, senior US lawmakers who held talks with Israeli leaders have said that they're hopeful of a humanitarian pause in the war before Ramadan. But Israel has warned that unless Hamas frees all hostages, its offensive will continue even during the Muslim holy month. Britain's Prince William has called for an end to the war in Gaza. He expressed concern over the, quote, sheer scale of human suffering, saying too many have been killed. The statement came after the Prince of Wales visited the London headquarters of the British Red Cross, where he learned about the humanitarian efforts taking place to those in the conflict themselves. And Prince William added that it was critical that aid got through to Gaza and that Hamas must release the hostages. Meanwhile, the Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich have said that Israel would not pay any price for the return of hostages still held in Gaza. Smotrich said that their return is very important, but they could not be released at any cost. He added that the way to free them is by ramping up the military pressure on Gaza and defeating Hamas. His remarks drew rebukes from opposition leaders and angered families of hostages who have been ramping up the pressure on the government to strike a deal. But shortly after, Netanyahu's office published a statement echoing Smotrich's position.
There is considerable pressure on Israel at home and abroad to stop the war before we achieve all of its goals, including a deal at any price to free the hostages. We very much want to achieve another release, and we are prepared to go far, but we are not prepared to pay any price. Certainly not the delusional prices that Hamas is demanding of us, the meaning of which is the defeat of the state of Israel.
As Israel's offensive continues, the World Health Organization has completed a second evacuation mission from Gaza's Nasser hospital. The UN agency said efforts are still continuing to transfer the remaining patients, but the site has no electricity or running water. West Asia tensions are far from limited to Gaza. Tensions in the Red Sea continue to escalate. The US military has said that the Houthis fired 2 anti-ship ballistic missiles at a US-owned bulk carrier. The Greek-flagged but US-owned cargo vessel has arrived in the southern Yemeni port of Aden after the attack. Shipping risks have escalated due to repeated drone and missile strikes in the Red Sea by the Iran-backed Houthis since November. US and British forces have responded with several strikes, but have so far failed to halt the attacks. Well, for more on this, we were earlier joined by our correspondent Jodie Cohen from Ra'anah. Jodie, what can you tell us about what Finance Minister Smotrich has said about Israel's priority in this war and the reactions to his comments?
So Finance Minister Smotrich was asked what is Israel's most important priority in this war, and he said that the release of the hostages is not the most important thing. What matters most is destroying Hamas. But he also asked why make it a competition, and said that the release of the hostages is also extremely important. Now, some of the hostage families have been upset by his remarks. War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz has said that the return of the hostages is the most urgent goal, and Israel will not miss any any opportunity to bring them home. Now remember, 134 hostages have been held for now 138 days by Hamas in Gaza. The IDF have revealed a video with the permission of the family of the abduction of Shiri Bibas and her 4-year-old and 9-month-old baby, and they're the youngest of the hostages. And the IDF spokesperson Daniel Hagari has said that those who have the audacity to question Israel's need to operate in Gaza but don't have the humanity to demand that Hamas release the hostages first should look at this video.
And Jodie, what's the latest on the hostage release talks? Are they continuing?
Israel's finance minister Smotrich was asked about Israel's top priority in the war. His response was to defeat Hamas, although he suggested that securing the release of the 134 hostages still being held in Gaza is extremely important. This has upset some of the hostage families who want their release to be Israel's top priority. Meanwhile, talks are ongoing between the US, Egypt, Qatar and Israel to try to broker a pause in the fighting in exchange for the hostages' release. Hamas chief Haniyeh was in Egypt on Tuesday, and White House advisor Brett McGurk is there today and in Israel on Thursday for further talks. Prime Minister Netanyahu has said that a lot of pressure is being put on Israel at home and abroad to agree to a deal at any cost. He said Israel is willing to go a long way, but is not ready to pay any price, calling Hamas's demands delusional.